Are you confused about whether you should take statins or not? Have you been convinced that it's not really even a decision to make? Well, let's talk about that. Stay tuned. First, I want to talk about the concept of heuristics and the concept of a red flag. A red flag is a type of heuristic. A very fancy sounding word, but it's a simple concept. Heuristics are mental shortcuts or rules of thumb that people use to make decisions, solve problems, form judgments quickly, especially when complete information is not available. And it's important to note, with anything having to do with medicine or treatments, especially when we're talking about statins, but probably a lot of other medicines, is that complete information really is not available, even though we may be told that it is. Heuristics allow individuals to arrive at decisions based on experience, intuition, or simplified reasoning processes. So let's take a look at that, just an example from real life. Suppose a young lady is out on a date, blind date for the first time. The gentleman gets up in the middle of the date, just says, "Excuse me," and he goes and makes a phone call. And she can hear, trying not to be rude and listen, but she realizes that he's talking to his mother. Well, she may think, well, that's odd. Is this a mama's boy? Is this somebody who has to call his mother in the middle of a date? That could be a red flag. It might not be, however. It may be that his mother's in chemotherapy or something and he's being an attentive son. And in that case, this gentleman might be somebody that she really likes. But the date goes on and he's rude to the waiter. She can make an excuse. Maybe he's been having a bad day, but that doesn't bode well. Continues with the date and he drinks heavily. That may be a problem for her. It may not. Maybe she likes a good drink. We don't know. These are just kind of red flags that are adding up. Could explain away any of them. Well, at the end of the date, he walks her to her door and she opens the door and her dog, who loves everybody, comes charging out and absolutely hates this guy. So now we've got another red flag. You could argue that, well, maybe he has a smell of his cat on him or something, or he owns a dog himself and this dog took a dislike to it. So any one of these red flags could be excusable, but when you add them all up, this seems to be a problem for the young lady. And some of the red flags are stronger indicators than others. Being rude to the waiter, drinking heavily, something like that. Those might be weighted more than calling your mother or the dog not liking him. So this is an example of how we use heuristics, or may use heuristics, to reach a decision. Does this young lady want to keep on seeing this gentleman? So now let's look at some statin heuristics, and there's a lot of them. And some of them may resonate with you, many of them may not. They're just things that we might want to consider. The long-term effects of statins are not fully known, and many mimic aging, which makes them difficult to detect or even recognize. A lot of people maybe are older, and they seem to have gotten a little older before their time. Is it the statins? We don't know. It's possible. Statins impact chemical processes and cells throughout your body. Now, here is something that is supposed to be helping your heart. It's supposed to be reducing cholesterol because you're told that that's how they help your heart. Yet they are impacting muscle cells. They're impacting brain cells. All these should make us a little nervous, or at least something we should consider. Insulin resistance increases for many people who take statins, even those who don't get pushed over the edge from pre-diabetes to diabetes, or from normal to pre-diabetic. Statins reduce CoQ10 and cause mitochondrial damage. This harkens back to the idea that they can injure muscles also. CoQ10 is a substance in the body that is vital to our good health. It does decrease over time. A lot of aging could be just a measurement of how good your CoQ10 production is in your body. And statins accelerate the decrease in CoQ10. If you have to be on a drug for a lifetime, then they're not curing anything. They're just maintaining some condition. So you might want to consider that. Why am I being put on this drug? I'm being told that it's hopeless. I have to be on this drug forever. I certainly was told that. To me, that says that they're giving up. They don't understand what it really takes for you to improve your health in this particular matter. Randomized control trials are often run by Big Pharma, and the best results come from those that are run by Big Pharma. So there's a conflict of interest here. A salesman who automatically has a conflict of interest because they want to sell you something and make a commission, for example, but it's possible that the product they're trying to sell you is the best thing for you. So a conflict of interest doesn't necessarily mean definitively there is a problem, but it is something that should be a cause for concern. Your brain is the largest user of cholesterol relative to its weight in your body, statins will reduce cholesterol production in your brain. Cognitive impacts are common with statins, regardless of what you may have been told otherwise. Fetuses require cholesterol to develop properly, so they should not be taken by women during pregnancy, and there's some controversy going on with that. The FDA is backing off a little bit on whether they're calling pregnancy a contraindication for statins or not. Just consider it a contraindication. You don't want to mess with your child's development. And it's almost impossible to know whether the statin caused some developmental problem. For all you know, the child may seem perfectly normal, but maybe they would have been a little bit smarter or a little bit healthier if you hadn't been taking statins while you were pregnant. Statins are contraindicated in the presence of hypothyroidism, in my mind, in the presence of Parkinson's, and probably many other conditions. Statin numbers needed to treat are very high, often in the double digits or triple digits when it comes to primary prevention, but in the double digits even for high-risk patients, and the numbers needed to harm are very low, in the single digits. If 20 to 30% of all patients suffer some adverse effects, well, the number needed to harm is as low as 5 in that case. Actually 3 to 5 in that case. Some of the harms may be minor compared to the supposed benefit, but the supposed benefit is very rare. The numbers needed to treat 20, 30, sometimes in the hundreds. Type 2 diabetes, blood pressure, and smoking all have higher impacts than cholesterol. So if your doctor is not addressing these items, if you have insulin resistance, whether you actually have type 2 diabetes or not, whether you're still a smoker, whether you have high blood pressure, if they're not addressing those, and it doesn't have to be with drugs, it may be with lifestyle, and should be with lifestyle adjustments, at least at first, then throwing statins at a supposed problem with cholesterol is just silly. It's just a matter of, we have this hammer, so everything looks like a nail. We have this statin, so everything looks like high cholesterol is a problem. The average total cholesterol in the population is just under 200 milligrams per deciliter, or about 5 millimoles per liter. I addressed this in a previous video. Just because it's average doesn't mean that's necessarily healthy. One could argue against this, but it makes us think, if the average cholesterol is a level that many doctors use to try reducing, then it seems to me they're saying over half their patients should be on this particular drug, and that just doesn't seem right to me. All-cause mortality is statistically lowest around 220 milligrams per deciliter. That's about 5.7 millimoles per liter. Both higher and lower values tend towards higher mortality, though lower is actually worse than higher, like 40 points lower than the average is worse than 40 points higher than the average, as an example. Doesn't mean that 220 or 5.7 should be anybody's particular target, because that would be applying the heuristic the wrong way there. But it makes us think, why are they trying to get us down into the 140 milligrams per deciliter? That's like 3.2 or something millimoles per liter. Why are they calling that healthy? That just doesn't make any sense. The most likely result of statin therapy, unless your risk of a heart attack over whatever time period we're talking about, but let's say it's 10 years, unless your risk of a heart attack over 10 years is extremely high, like over 50%, then the most likely result, by following the current guidelines, such as a 7.5% 10-year risk, the most likely result of statin therapy is that it's not going to make a difference, because you weren't going to have an event, a heart attack or a stroke anyway. The second most likely thing is that if you were bound to have one, you're going to have it anyway, because the relative risk reductions are less than 50%. And then the least likely outcome is that you were bound to have a heart attack or a stroke, and the statin actually prevented it. One can argue, well, it still doesn't matter. You should go for whatever chance you can get, but it's something that's worth thinking about. It's not certain that cholesterol quality improvements, if there are quality improvements from taking statins, are as effective as those from lifestyle adjustments such as diet and exercise. For example, if you take Crestor and it increases your HDL, is that as good as exercising and getting the same increase in HDL? That's not really known. Some of the randomized control trials that I have seen showed absolutely no difference in all-cause mortality, for example, from the use of Crestor. Now, that was just one study. I don't trust any of the studies anyway, so I don't know what to make of that one. It appeals to my prejudices, but I will defer a discussion of that into another video. Statin hesitancy is increasing among doctors who are looking beyond the standard guidelines. It used to be that all doctors were just like, yeah, put it in the water, take your statins if you're over 40, whatever it is. There is a small but vocal minority that is pushing back against this. I hope I'm not just imagining it because I'm in that space where I'm looking for it. I'm hoping that it's actually becoming a larger and larger part of the medical profession. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. The fact that there are a lot of statin hesitant doctors out there is just another heuristic, another thing to consider. There is some evidence of increased hemorrhagic strokes on statins. This is one of the weaker ones. It's not an overwhelming increase. It may be illusory. Another thing to consider. Clinicians report about 20 to 30% of adverse effects from taking statins versus what the randomized controlled trials show of 2%. We know why that is. The randomized controlled trials are not made to detect the adverse effects. As a matter of fact, a lot of the people who are suffering from adverse effects drop out of the trials. So you can't use that 2%. Yet a lot of doctors will try using that 2% value to tell you, don't worry, there won't be any adverse effects. So here's an important point. I doubt that you're going to go to your doctor and say, doctor, I've used some heuristics to determine that I shouldn't be taking statins. You won't do that. Your doctor would look at you like you've got 5 heads. But they may argue that they're using evidence-based medicine. Well, guess what? Evidence-based medicine are just heuristics with statistics. This is what I mean by that. Let's take a look at risk calculators, for example. They take heuristics, characteristics of cohorts of people. As an example, people with type 2 diabetes tend to have more heart attacks, and they put frequencies on them. But not everybody with type 2 diabetes gets a heart attack, and not everyone who gets a heart attack has type 2 diabetes. This is a classic heuristic way of thinking. It is a legitimate one, and the risk calculators are heuristic machines. They're putting numbers on the heuristics. There is what I call the heuristic irony, and that is that most risk calculators overestimate the risks for the cohorts, for the characteristics of the people in these groups. So it's fair to apply a heuristic to the heuristic generator and downgrade those risk estimates. Now, the prevent calculator, the one that just came out, the jury must still be out because we don't have enough data to see if it is truly more accurate than the others, though it is given lower risk values than most of the others. The 2018 pooled cohort equation calculator for me did give a lower value than the prevent calculator, but not by a lot. It just strikes me how funny that is, that there's this irony in there having to do with the heuristics. The calculator generates heuristics and it does it in such a way that we have to apply a heuristic to bring the value down. The guidelines are heuristic based, and they recommend treatments based on small differences in event rates between treated and untreated groups. When the guideline says if you have a 7.5% risk of a cardiovascular event in the next 10 years, that's the definition of a heuristic. It's incomplete information. If they told you you had a 100% risk or that you had a 0% risk, well, that's complete data. But when you're dealing with probabilities, you're automatically into the world of heuristics. And while your doctor may claim that her recommendations are based on evidence-based medicine and deny using heuristics, in fact, all statin-related data are heuristic in nature. Probably all randomized controlled trial values are heuristic in nature because all they can do is tell you the untreated group had 20% higher rate of whatever the event is that they're trying to prevent. Doesn't have to have anything to do with cardiovascular events. It could be hangnails or whatever. But that doesn't mean that everybody in that group is going to have the problem that they're trying to avoid, nor is everybody in that group who takes the therapy going to avoid the problem that they're trying to avoid. So my closing thoughts, some of these heuristics will apply to you and some may not. We can't take on any single heuristic to make decisions on whether to take statins or any kind of therapy or not. But don't be fooled into thinking there's anything but heuristics to rely on. No matter how the results of randomized controlled trials and other studies get dressed up as facts, they're just rules of thumb. Rules of thumb that's created from data, but they are kind of rules of thumb. There's a tendency towards this, there's a tendency towards that. They're rules of thumb on both sides of the argument, whether to take it or not to take it. And don't get caught up on arguing each of these points piecemeal. Any competent person can refute any of these one at a time. Any of the ones that I went over what, 18 of them? I can refute any of them or show how they don't apply in this particular case or that particular case. But it's like the young lady who really likes this new guy and she's just looking past all the red flags. Your doctor can say, objection number 1, we've overcome that. What do you got next? And you do it one at a time, and you miss the fact that special pleading was done for 12 different objections you have. What you end up doing is missing the totality of your unease with taking statins, and that's not going to serve you well. So that's what I have on this topic. If you appreciate this content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment on this and other topics you'd like me to cover. And if you haven't seen this video, I recommend you take a look at it now. Thanks for listening.